As dawn bathed the sleepy street in soft amber light, Kennedy felt a swirl of anxiety tug at her. There she was, standing with an air of impatience on the old wooden porch, her mother, Samantha, dragging a robust suitcase alongside her. Kennedy noted the time glaring back at her from the dashboard of her vintage Mustang, 6:02 a.m. The tension was palpable, hanging in the air like suspended rain, hinting at an impending storm of words between them. It felt like betrayal in slow motion, Kennedy thought, as she stepped out of her car, forcing a smile seemingly brighter than the growing sunrise. She was just 2 minutes late, but it appeared to have been an eternity in her family's unspoken judgment. Her mother, Samantha, stood there as if orchestrating an encounter that Kennedy hadn't fully anticipated. As Kennedy approached to help with the luggage, her sister, Hayden, appeared from the house, suitcase in tow. Kennedy's courteous expression faltered. "What's going on?" she inquired, striving to keep her voice as steady as possible. "Oh, Kennedy," Samantha explained with an overly cheerful facade that barely masked the sting of her words. "We thought that Hayden could use this trip instead of you. She's been so stressed lately." Kennedy's insides twisted. This trip had been her baby, a labor of love she'd worked overtime shifts to fund, aiming to give her parents an unforgettable experience. "Instead of me?" she echoed, bewildered. "I've organized everything." Samantha dismissed the protest with a wave of her hand, as if Kennedy had only noted some trivial detail. "We're grateful, darling, but you're always working so hard. Hayden needs this right now." Hayden, with an undeniable smirk, added salt to the wound. "Thanks for understanding, Ken," she said, her voice dripping with faux gratitude. Feeling her pulse quicken and her heartache metamorphose into anger, Kennedy noticed her father, Logan, join the scene, not meeting her eyes as he handed over his bag. "This is unreal," Kennedy said, her voice shaking with barely restrained emotion. "This was supposed to be our shared adventure." Her mother's persistent cheeriness bordered on offensive. "Well, it still is, just with Hayden." Anger kindled within her. Kennedy's name, once spoken with pride, felt like a curse as she bit back the ferocious words swirling in her mind. She realized at that moment her parents' perpetual favoritism wasn't going anywhere. Clenching her teeth, she chose acquiescence over confrontation. "Let's get moving then," she replied, her tone icy. Their journey to the airport was soaked in silence, shattered only by Hayden's incessant fantasies about Chicago and escapades. "Mom, did you see that Instagram on Chicago? We absolutely have to go shopping." Her excitement was infectious to anyone but Kennedy. Samantha laughed softly. "We'll make time." Logan ventured conversation, though awkwardly. "Thank you for driving us, Kennedy. I imagine this is a bit odd for you." "Odd. Interesting choice of words. Dad," she retorted, seeing his discomfort reflected in the rearview mirror. From the back seat, Hayden naively probed, "You aren't upset, right?" "I couldn't have funded this myself." "Of course," Kennedy replied with a thin smile. "Enjoy your trip, Hayden." Arriving at the airport's drop-off, patience worn thin, Kennedy helped unload their luggage. Samantha embraced her. "Thank you for understanding, sweetheart. This means so much to us." To Hayden. Kennedy's nod was mechanical, Hayden's beam all too bright as she wheeled away. Her heart pounded with unspent words as she watched them disappear into the terminal. Alone, she retraced her steps to the car, the drive back tinged with bitter reflection. Each recounted word haunted her. Convinced of her irrelevance in family decisions, she reevaluated her priorities. Gripping the steering wheel in a resolution now burning with the intensity of her frustration, she returned home. Not even pausing to shed her coat, she powered up her laptop, intent on reclaiming the narrative of her life, no longer willing to stand as a backdrop to Hayden's spotlight. In the dim glow of her laptop screen, Kennedy executed her plan with a determination unlike anything she had felt before. Each click and cancellation echoed the resolution in her heart. "No more 5-star hotels on my tab," she mused with satisfaction, as reservation confirmations disintegrated into mere pixels. The moment of liberation filled her airless city apartment with a fresh sense of empowerment, freeing her from becoming her family's financial safety net for their impulsive trip, a trip that was meant to be hers. She would no longer finance her sister Hayden's wins. Her phone buzzed persistently as she painstakingly unpacked a suitcase that had held her dreams of adventure. The irony of it all was as thick as the fabric of the dress she carefully hung back in its place. Kennedy couldn't help but release a small, yet wickedly satisfying laugh when her mother's messages began to flood in. Samantha's first confused plea read, "Kennedy, the hotel won't check us in." "What's happening?" "Call me right away." Another followed quickly, demanding, "This isn't funny, fix this now." She chuckled despite herself, amused at the family's audacity to expect her rescuing touch today. As Hayden's call came in, she could only roll her eyes as her sister's voice dripped with arrogant self-assuredness in her voicemail. "We're stuck here because of you. Call the hotel and fix it." Kennedy dismissed the voicemail, her resolve unshaken. Years of playing the fixer, the peacemaker, washed over her. This time, she refused to mend what they had chosen to break. Acknowledging the need to halt the call frenzy, she reluctantly answered the phone, bracing for Samantha's storm of discontent. Samantha's voice poured through the line, a cascade of frustration and disbelief. "Kennedy, what did you do? There are no reservations. The tours weren't booked." Kennedy listened, unperturbed, a small smile gracing her lips. "I canceled them," she responded evenly, allowing Samantha a moment of stunned silence to process. "Why would you do such a thing?" Samantha's question hissed through the receiver. Kennedy wasn't about to humor the question with pretense. "Oh, I don't know," she replied, her words laced with heavy sarcasm. "Perhaps because after all my efforts, you decided Hayden needed the trip more than me? Consider yourselves lucky I even drove you to the airport." "We thought you'd understand," Samantha argued, voice laced with incredulity. "Understand what?" Kennedy snapped, feeling the familiar heat of betrayal burning dimly once more. "That Hayden's short-term stress overrides years of my planning and hard work? I don't understand, and I frankly don't care anymore." Before Samantha could retort, Kennedy disconnected, tossing the phone aside, embracing the silence as a soothing balm. The tranquility of her decision collapsed just a day later as messages barraged her phone anew, each screenlit notification clawing at her curiosity. Her mother's insistence tore through. "Kennedy, you've gone too far, your sister's in tears, and your father is incredulous. Fix this mess." Hayden's message carried its usual commanding air. "Stop acting like a child. Why are you making a big deal over this?" Finally, a softer sting came from her father, Logan, with an imploring, "We need to talk." As she poured a comforting cup of tea, Kennedy sat contemplating, every ounce of her indignation simmering. The audacity of their entitlement left her incredulous. No longer their savior, they wavered in the turbulence of their choices. When Samantha called again minutes later, Kennedy's calm was resolute as she picked up. "This has gone too far, Kennedy." Samantha's agitation battered through the line. "We're stranded. Do you understand how embarrassing this is?" Kennedy took a deliberate sip, savoring the earthy warmth of the tea. "Embarrassing? You find this embarrassing? Try considering my perspective for once," she retorted, poised, unyielding. Kennedy awoke with a pang of disappointment mingled with the scent of brewing coffee that wafted through her cozy apartment. The peace of dawn was shattered by the echoes of past grievances. After years of meticulous saving, planning, and dreaming, she'd been sidelined from her own meticulously crafted adventure. Her mother, Samantha, may have impatiently snapped over the phone, but Kennedy was resolute. "I'm done funding Hayden's escapades, Mom. You made your choice, live with it." "We're family," Samantha retorted, her voice laced with indignation. "We don't abandon each other." Kennedy couldn't restrain a bitter chuckle. "Funny, I was thinking the exact same thing." Through the faint murmur on the line, Hayden's petulant demand came through, a garbled insistence to hang up. That was the tipping point. "Enjoy your trip," Kennedy retorted icily. "Oh, wait, you can't." "Because it was mine." The call ended with a decisive tap, leaving her with an odd mix of defiance and liberation. She no longer yielded to the demands of an unmindful family. This newfound stance was unfamiliar yet strangely comforting. The subsequent days enveloped her in serenity. With her phone silenced, the cacophony of demands and guilt-laden messages ceased. Kennedy basked in the solitude of her back porch, cradling a steaming cup of coffee and savoring moments of clarity, a rarity amidst her life's usual chaos. Her afternoons were filled with productive solitude, unhampered by their constant intrusions. Curiosity eventually coaxed her into switching her phone back on, unveiling a digital avalanche of voicemails. Samantha's voice grew increasingly frantic as she implored, "You must call us. This is too far. Your father and I are at our wits' end." Meanwhile, Hayden's predictable entitlement dripped through each syllable. "You're ruining everything. Fix it, Kennedy." Even her father, Logan, chimed in, the weight of disappointment heavily present in his quieter tone. "I don't understand what's happened to you. We need to discuss this." Each voicemail lay heavy as another reminder of their enduring denial of years of similar treatment, but when would their enlightenment come? Kennedy's resolve fortified, she casually erased the messages. Reaching this breaking point had been inevitable, built on countless instances of being swept under the familial rug for Hayden's wins. Her heart swam through memories of an adolescence overshadowed, festive plans reshaped, personal achievements belittled. Planning that trip had been her breaking point, but only underscored the myriad cracks beneath. As the early evening shadows lengthened, her friend Jenna appeared at the door, 2 cups overflowing with warm reassurance. "I heard," Jenna stated simply, an amused twinkle in her gaze. "Your mom called me." Kennedy sighed, unsurprised by Samantha's attempts to rally allies. "And what did you say?" Jenna's amused smirk transformed into sincerity, delivering each word with the warmth only friendship wields. "I told her you were probably swamped and would call when you felt like it." Laughter danced between them, Kennedy's relief palpable. "You really are the best." "No, Ken." "You are," Jenna countered, her tone weighted with meaning. "It's about time you stood your ground. Don't let them pull you back down." Her words lingered long after Jenna departed, infusing Kennedy with a quiet resilience. Acknowledging Jenna's insight, Kennedy realized that she had long shouldered the weight of familial obligations at the cost of her autonomy. Breaking free from those chains was a personal triumph, a victory echoing through her coffee-scented sanctuary. By the time the weekend arrived, she was no longer the person they had known. As the crimson hues of autumn filtered through the living room window, a fresh sense of freedom settled over Kennedy like a cozy, familiar blanket. While the embers of anger continued to smolder beneath her serene facade, it was the newfound liberation that astonished her most. For the first time in years, she felt free from their endless expectations and the burdens of being the family's perennial fixer. But as she relished this newfound clarity, the silence she had embraced was predictably shattered. On a tranquil Sunday afternoon, her resolve was tested once more when she received a call she'd been expecting. It was her father, Logan, his voice thick with fatigue. "Kennedy," he began hesitantly. "Your mother wanted me to call, thinking you'd listen to me." "Go on," she replied, reclining comfortably, prepared for the predictable pleading. Logan continued with a sigh of resignation. "This whole situation has spiraled. Your mom's frazzled, Hayden's furious, and frankly, it's a mess. But honestly, you're better than this." His words kindled a renewed fury within her. "Better than standing up for myself," she retorted, her tone sharpened by his implication that resilience was unbecoming. "That's not what I meant," Logan said hurriedly, backtracking. "You're usually the calm one, holding everything together. This isn't like you." A short, bitter laugh escaped her, carrying with it the years of unaddressed slights. "Exactly. I'm not cleaning up your chaos anymore." An anticipatory silence followed, one that hinted at a turning point. Yet, his response was only more accusation. "Is it really fair to punish the entire family over a single choice?" "Fair," Kennedy scoffed, her voice rising with each syllable. "Would it have been fair to let you exclude me from the trip I orchestrated? You left me out as if I didn't matter." Logan's defensiveness was as familiar as the kitchen table she'd grown up around. "We thought your sister needed a break more than you did." "Predictable," she snapped back. "Hayden always takes precedence." but I refuse to be the sacrificial lamb any longer." The silence thickened, weighed down by unspoken realizations. Finally, he mustered a reply. "I don't know what you want from me." "I don't need words," Kennedy declared, her voice resolute. "I need you to understand that I refuse to be an afterthought. Goodbye, Dad." With those poignant words, she ended the conversation, her hands trembling with adrenaline and relief. That evening, she allowed herself the full breadth of emotions: anger, sadness, liberation. Her decision stood unmoved. She was no longer their cleanup crew, and they needed to evacuate their own calamities in her absence. When her family finally returned, Kennedy awaited them in their driveway, a tranquil aura enveloping her as she savored her coffee. Watching them step out of a weary taxi, their faces etched with frustration and exhaustion, she felt an unexpected calm. Hayden, ever the provocateur, spoke up first. "I hope you're satisfied, Kennedy." "What exactly would I be happy about?" She remained seated on the porch swing, unperturbed. "The trip was a shambles," Samantha interjected with a dismissive wave, as if dismissing the entire ordeal would erase the hardship. "We endured dingy hotels, horrid meals, and no tours." Feigning sympathy, Kennedy took a leisurely sip. "Sounds tough, but you insisted on taking Hayden. Hope you bonded well." Samantha's voice rose defiantly. "You knew we couldn't afford the luxuries you planned. You made sure we'd fail." Rising from her seat, Kennedy placed her mug on the nearby table, her stance unyielding. "No, I didn't set you up. I funded a special trip for us all. You chose to exclude me." Logan finally spoke, the softness of his tone no less accusatory. "Canceling everything was extreme, Kennedy." "Was it?" she replied, crossing her arms. "Why should I fund a vacation I'm not included in? If Hayden needed it that badly, you'd have found a way, right?" As the fall breeze swept away the remnants of afternoon warmth, Kennedy finally felt unshackled from years of familial expectations. Her anger smoldered quietly beneath her newfound freedom, a freedom to shape her own life, far removed from the binds of family obligations. Yet, predictably, this tranquility was a fleeting respite. It was on a crisp Sunday that Kennedy decided to answer the call from her father, Logan. His voice resonated with fatigue, a weary echo of their shared past. "Kennedy," he began, a tangible heaviness in his tone. "Your mother thinks you might listen if I spoke to you." She sighed, readying herself for the worn argument. "Go ahead, Dad." Logan sighed deeply, his exhaustion a testament to the family's unraveling. "This situation's out of control. Your mom's upset, and Hayden, well, she's furious. It's a mess, but I know you're better than this." His insinuation stoked Kennedy's embers of frustration. "Better than fighting for my self-respect," she countered sharply, pushing against the narrative that her defiance was unjustified. "That's not what I meant," came Logan's quick reply, his words a placation more than an explanation. "You've always been our steady hand, Kennedy. This isn't who you are." Her laugh was short, a sharp note of reality amid the storm. "No, I'm not bending to fix your problems anymore." Silence stretched over the line, an unspoken acceptance of change. Then his voice broke through, unsure. "Do you think punishing all of us for one mistake is fair?" "Fair." Kennedy's voice rose, incredulous. "Was it fair to exclude me from the trip I meticulously planned? To act like I was invisible?" Logan's defense mirrored past patterns. "We thought Hayden needed a break more." Like always, Kennedy fired back, the words practiced through years of sidelining. "But I'm not laying down anymore." The silence returned, Logan grappling with a new reality. "I don't know what you expect me to do." "I don't need anything," she replied, resolute and clear. "Except for you to understand that I'm no longer an afterthought. Goodbye, Dad." With that, she ended the call, her hands vibrating with a mix of adrenaline and liberation. By the time Kennedy's family staggered back, weary from a travel ordeal gone awry, she was ready. Camped on their porch with a coffee cup and an air of serene anticipation, she watched as they approached. Hayden was the first to break the uneasy truce. "Hope you're pleased with yourself, Kennedy." "What should I celebrate?" she asked from her swing, unfazed by the confrontation. "The trip was garbage, Samantha, her mother, chimed in as if waving a magic wand could erase their consequences. We were stuck in ratty motels and had awful food. Kennedy sipped her coffee calmly, listening. Tough break, but you chose Hayden. Hope the bonding was fun. Samantha's voice climbed in pitch. You knew we couldn't afford luxury. You knew. Standing, Kennedy left her cup on the table, her stance firm and composed. No, I didn't sabotage you. I planned the trip for us, something special I saved for you. But you left me out. Logan finally interjected, quieter but still accusatory. Canceling it all was over the top, Kennedy. Was it? She challenged, her arms folding in defiance. Why fund an adventure that confined me to the sidelines? If Hayden needed the break, then you'd have managed somehow. As Kennedy retreated to her car, the blurred chorus of stinging voices chased her, a blend of regret and ire, unrequited. Yet, she didn't look back. The drive away from her parents' house was different this time, comforting and peaceful. Each visit had worn her down, but now she felt buoyant. She had finally voiced the truth she'd harbored for too long. In her own living room, she brewed some tea, replaying the scene, feeling lighter. For once, she had not buckled under their expectations. Their stunned faces were her proof of transformation. It didn't matter whether they were angry or hurt anymore. The next day, Jenna's call brought warmth to Kennedy's introspection. How'd it go? Jenna asked without salutations. Kennedy chuckled, leaning back against the kitchen counter. Exactly as predicted. They're furious, Hayden sulking, and I bet Mom's brewing a guilt storm. I say let her try, Jenna snorted. You've got a backbone now, and I'll help keep it strong. Thanks, Jenna, Kennedy whispered, gratitude coating her words. You've been my anchoring rock. Anytime, Jenna softened, her voice like a comforting embrace. So what's next for you, now that you've shed family fixer? The question lingered, the promise of possibilities unwrapped. For years, Kennedy had poured herself into seeking family approval. Now, unburdened, her horizons felt both boundless and daunting. I don't know, she admitted, her honesty a revelation. But I'm excited to find out because now I get to choose. Sounds like the adventure of a lifetime, Jenna replied, her smile evident even over the phone. In the weeks that followed, Kennedy made small but significant changes. She swapped out hand-me-down furniture for pieces that felt singularly hers, explored new cafes and green spaces she'd always deferred, and started journaling thoughts unfiltered by others' expectations. Each act reclaimed a part of herself she never realized was lost. One evening, Kennedy returned to her laptop, confronting the canceled trip spreadsheet without regret. Instead, she felt emboldened. The funds had been earmarked for a grand adventure, and she wouldn't let them dissipate. Closing the spreadsheet, she opened a new browser tab, her fingers typing solo travel destinations. Within a few weeks of their return, Kennedy booked her own trip to Greece. This wasn't about retribution anymore. It was a celebration of self, an odyssey entirely her own. As Kennedy disembarked from her flight and inhaled the vibrant Athenian air, a thrilling combination of dread and liberation coursed through her veins. This was her first foray into solo travel, a new chapter with herself as the protagonist. Athens enveloped her in its lively embrace, where her only guide was choice. Navigating cobblestone lanes, she marveled at ancient wonders, savoring meals that whispered stories of history and culture. Here, there was no itinerary dictated by others, just Kennedy, basking in the autonomy she'd craved. Perched on the Acropolis, with a creamy gelato in hand, Kennedy felt a whisper of adventure in her journal's crisp pages. She'd filled countless pages in the past with ambitions tainted by the desires of others. Now, her words crafted new dreams, speaking a foreign tongue, launching a business, glimpsing vistas in foreign lands. Each penned goal mirrored a life Kennedy was sculpting, untethered by familial chains. On her final night in Thessaloniki, a quaint restaurant by the Strymon River cast a golden hue upon life as she contemplated. The sunset orchestrated a symphony of orange and pink above, and Kennedy realized this journey was more than a getaway, it was a transformation. She'd chased approval for too long. Here, miles removed from that quest, She grasped a liberating truth. She was enough, exactly as she was. Upon returning home, her parents' messages began to arrive, tentative and conciliatory. "Hope you enjoyed your trip," her mother's text read. "Maybe we can meet to talk soon." Kennedy absorbed the message's cautious undertones before setting her phone aside. Replying could wait. This time, it was her decision. Unpacking her suitcase, she scattered newly bought treasures around her room, a vivid testament to her growth. A week later, when her mother called, Kennedy chose to pick up the phone. "Hi, Kennedy," Samantha began, her tone gentle as a caress. "How was your trip?" "It was incredible," Kennedy replied, her voice a deliberate calm. "I'm glad," Samantha said, hesitating then continuing. "We've done some thinking about everything. Maybe we didn't handle things well." The confession startled Kennedy, but she remained guarded. "Poorly is putting it lightly," she countered. "You disregarded me for a trip I orchestrated, with no regard for my feelings." Samantha's voice wavered. "Your father and we didn't foresee the pain it caused." "And Hayden?" Kennedy pressed. "Does she regret it? Or am I still the villain in her story?" "She's upset," Samantha admitted. "But I believe she realizes she could have acted differently." Leaning against the counter, Kennedy sighed. Being overlooked wasn't exclusive to the trip. It's been years of feeling secondary, of carrying the weight. "I'm done." After a pause, Samantha conceded, "We want to mend this, Kennedy. We don't want to estrange you." While Samantha's sincerity tugged at buried emotions, Kennedy stayed resolute. "Words are just the start, Mom. It'll take genuine effort, not just apologies." "You'll see changes," Samantha promised, the urgency raw. "We'll grant you space, but we hope to earn our place again." Ending the call, Kennedy mulled over her mixed emotions. Relief mingled with skepticism. Acknowledgement was a step, but action spoke louder. As she poured her thoughts into her journal, she recognized an undeniable truth. Their transformation wasn't her burden to bear. Over the ensuing months, Kennedy maintained firm boundaries. She answered familial calls when inclined, but refused to mend every rift. Her focus turned inward, investing in her aspirations. Enrolling in a photography class she'd long admired filled her with renewed energy, while joining a local hiking group introduced her to uncharted terrain. Planning her next solo venture infused her every action with purpose. One evening, settled serenely on her porch as the sunset orchestrated its daily performance, Kennedy savored the progress she'd made. Her life was her own, unfettered by past expectations, as she continually rediscovered herself in each new horizon. As the sun dipped below the horizon, transforming the sky into a canvas of vibrant hues, Kennedy relaxed on her porch, her heart light with newfound clarity. The air carried a hint of nostalgia intertwined with the promise of unexplored paths, a fitting reflection of Kennedy's own transformation. Gone were the days of sacrificing for those who never saw her worth. With every passing day, Kennedy had redefined herself. She was no longer the woman who bent under the weight of others' expectations. Instead, she had grown into someone who cherished her own value, who confidently drew lines in the sand, and who embraced the courage to claim what she truly deserved. Each decision, the photography classes, the solo travel, and the rejection of past burdens, had sculpted a life where her needs and dreams took precedence. Sitting there, silhouetted against the brilliant sunset, Kennedy felt a profound sense of liberation. The freedom was palpable, an electrifying pulse that invigorated her spirit and whispered of endless potential. At last, she had become the architect of her destiny, boldly crafting a life that celebrated her passions and aspirations. In that golden moment, Kennedy realized the power of self-discovery. She was a woman who had learned to honor herself, who had broken free from the chains of expectation, and who stood ready to embrace a future brimming with possibilities. Her journey was her own, a testament to resilience and the unwavering pursuit of her heart's desires.